welcome to another edition of the AsIs Podcast. Today's podcast is a special podcast because we're going to talk about a few things that we normally don't talk about. One of those things is going to be Black history. Before I get into that, I want to explain a few things to a couple of people because sometimes the perceptions and the preconceived notions of what being Black and poor are definitely wrong. Number one, you can be Black and proud. You could be white and proud. You could be any color and proud. What you make, where you live, does not determine your education level. You can be brilliant. You are brilliant, but you just have to believe that. So I'm not going to get too mushy and go into all of that. I'm going to come with some facts and give you guys a story or two. Let me start off by telling you why Black History Month was started. In 1926, the first week-long celebration to raise awareness of Black Americans' contributions to history was started by Carter G. Woodson, an American historian, author, journalist, and the founder of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Prior to this time, important achievements by Black Americans were left out. They were left out of history books, and information about such individuals were generally hard to find. As a result, many people believe Black Americans hadn't made many contributions to U.S. society or history. We all know that's true. Not true, I'm sorry. And we know it's not true simply because Black people are amazing. I don't want to make this a racial issue. I'm not anti-white. We don't believe in anti-white. Do I have problems with other cultures, ethnicities, and things that some people do? There's no question. But I also have problems with my own people. And some of the times, the reason why I have these problems with my own people is because we don't sit down and try to learn how to fix problems another way. That's an entirely different story. But let's stick to a topic that is plaguing our neighborhoods nationwide. And one of those, the hot topic is police brutality and police killing Black people in particular. I know there is a movement for Black Lives Matter. I do not subscribe to the Black Lives Matter movement. However, I do subscribe to Black Lives Mattering. I do not believe that you have to have a movement to suddenly feel or become important. I was Black before Black Lives Matter started. I'm going to be Black when they die. You're going to be whatever you're going to be with or without someone validating and saying to you, this is what you have to belong to in order to be. That's a falsehood. It's also my opinion. Let's go into this though. According to Statista, I'm giving you facts. And I'm giving you facts from Statista Researchers Department. And I'm going to read to you what it says. It says, sadly, the trend of fatal police shootings in the United States seems to only be increasing, with a total of 995 civilians being shot. 117 were Black. As of December 2021, understand that. Of the 995 civilians being shot, 117 of them were Black. All right. In 2020, there were a total of 1,021 fatal police shootings. And in 2019, there were 999 fatal shootings. Okay? Additionally, the rate of fatal police shootings among Black Americans was much higher than that for any other ethnicity, standing at 38 fatal shootings per million as of the population as of January 2022. What that simply means to me is they're killing us. Like, I don't think that we as people really realize what's happening. And I think it needs to change. But the first way to change anything is to educate yourself. That's very important. And I'm going to move away from that and give you a personal story. I'm a felon. I've been incarcerated. I've been to jail. I did some time. But what made me change was realizing that I was getting up in age and I wasn't about to sit back behind nobody's bars. I'm not going back to jail. That is out of the question. So it's like with anything, you have to replace your time with something else. So in other words, if you came home every day at 6 o'clock, okay, and whatever you do, you can eat dinner, eat ice cream, do whatever it is, and you suddenly want to stop, you are in a habit forming situation that is going to tell you, I have to do this because your mental clock says at 6 o'clock, this is what you do. In order to prevent yourself from doing that, you got to change what you do. Meaning, instead of eating ice cream, let me exercise. Or let me sit down in front of the TV and watch TV. Whatever it is you do, you need to find a way to change what you do, because you're just going to go back to the same situation, the same predicament. That's why the recidivism rate for prisons are so high, because these young men and women go to jail, they get out, they go back to the same neighborhoods and same environments that they left. So what are you going to do? If you go back to the same place, eventually you're going to do the same thing. That's what we need to learn how to change. I was fortunate enough to be able to change that, and I got into the magazine industry. That within itself opened the door to getting into entertainment. I wasn't successful. I'm still not successful by societal standards, but I'm successful for me because I'm free. I'm not in jail. I don't turn my back on people in jail, because I do understand that some people have situations and the end result is going to be prison. I'm not saying that is right. I am not pro-jail. I am not anti-freedom. I'm a person who understands that things happen. And although things happen, it's how you handle those things. And sometimes you handle them based on what you know. In other words, if you know better, you'll do better. I was fortunate enough to know better, and I was fortunate enough to know better simply because I didn't want to go back to jail. So what do? I knew how to do one thing, sell drugs. But then I thought about it. I know how to tell a drug story. So if I could tell a drug story, I could sell that story. Because when you think about it, throughout history, everything is repeated. And you got to understand that people tell you stories based on what they've done or what they've seen. Movies are based on imagination. Somewhere within that imagination is a bit of truth, and they just expound on that truth. So for me, I definitely knew how to sell drugs. I definitely knew what dope fiends were, crackheads were, dope boys were, drug kingpins were. So why not sell that story? Because if you think about it, everybody has a story. Somewhere at some point, someone is going to sit down and tell you a story. What they call them in the streets is war stories. And it's usually braggadocious stories that make themselves look better than what they are, or their situation is. And sometimes that's all people really have. And you have to understand that. I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then I'm going to let it be, because I want you to understand, again, what's important to me is not about where you've been. It's about where you're going. But you will never know where you're going until you take the time to listen to somebody who's been there. The best teacher in life is experience. You can learn from someone else by just standing and looking. But let me go on to this. I can remember in my magazine, at one time, I'm going to give you guys a true story. May be hard to believe what you want to. Doesn't matter, but I'm going to tell it. Okay. I got a letter one time from somebody in a prison. We would get a lot of mail. My magazine, not just my magazine, but there are a couple of other magazines that we were really strong in jail. We were actually stronger than the Bible in mentalities, not in the message, but in mentalities. So don't nobody try to mix up my words. Bibles are readily available, and they sit there. You put an AsIs Magazine out, or you put something with a girl on it, it's going to go. Doesn't matter what color you are, black or white. So long story short, we get a letter. And the letter says, I remember someone had given me the letter because they read it first, because most of the mail that I get, someone reads it first. Because sometimes I get a lot of crazy people and they write all kinds of crazy stuff. And sometimes it bothers me. So people around me that are closest to me, they know that. So they'll pre-read the letter. And if it's something that they think will catch my attention, they'll give it to me. If it's just a bunch of malarkey, they're not going to give it to me. It'll go in the garbage. I'm just telling you right now. So long story short, this in particular letter intrigued me. And the reason why it intrigued me is because it said that, listen, I have someone that I'm a cellmate with, and I can give you a story that no one else will get. And I'm still reading the letter and my mind is working. So I get to the part where who he's offering to have me speak to. And at the time it was unbelievable, and I'm not going to make you guess, but the person was a Gambino. Now, we all know that the Gambinos are the Mafia. Carlos Gambino, head of the Mafia. This letter had come from a federal institution. Long story short, I promptly replied. So the next thing I know, inside that letter, I put my telephone number, how to get in contact with me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which they had the company's mailing address, but they didn't have personal information. Maybe a month goes by. One day, I'm in my car, and I get a phone call. I'm like, you know how sometimes you see a phone number on your phone and you don't know who it is. So you have the option to either answer it or not answer it, because what people do nowadays is if they don't recognize a number, they ain't answering the phone. It doesn't matter if they're dodging a bill collector or somebody they don't want to talk to. It's just like, if I don't know that number, call ID or not, I'm not answering this phone. But at that time, and as of now, I answer the phone to all calls, because if you're a bill collector and you call my phone and you tell me something crazy, I'm going to tell you, well, listen, if I had the money to pay the bill, you wouldn't be calling me on the phone. Because the first thing they say is, well, they'll go through their speech and then they'll say, can we take care of that payment now? Are you crazy? What you mean, if we could take care of the payment now, you wouldn't be calling me. And I'll just hang up. So getting back to the point, for me, I answered the phone. It was Cristopher Gambino. I'm in disbelief. Now understand, I own a black publication. And as a black man, it's a rarity to talk to an Italian, and much less talk to somebody in the Mafia. Don't believe all that crap you see on TV, because most of the time when people have positions of power like that, they don't let it be known to you. And you got to understand another thing. I'm the average black man. I look no different. I am no different than my peers. And my peers are my people. And my people are black. My people are all people, but in particularly, I am going to stand on my people are black. So from a distance, you're not going to be able to tell us apart. So what that basically means is, I didn't have my jeans hanging off my butt, and, but I wore the baseball caps and the Timberlands and the whole thing. Those kind of people aren't privileged to mixing with the upper echelon of society, even in the criminal world. They keep a distance and a barrier to you. I was no different. The only exception was I have a magazine. That magazine had power, still does, especially in prisons. The reason why the story was offered to me and given to me, what I didn't know at the time, but found out later, because there was a family member from that family in the Fed joint, and his cellmate was somebody black. Now, I don't know if it was a cellmate. I never really dug that deep into it, but whoever it was, the black guy that initially wrote me the letter held power over the white guy. But he must have didn't know who the white guy's father was, or maybe he did, and he just used it to his own advantage. So now understand this, and this is where it got tricky. After the initial contact was made, he called me. I didn't believe it. I'm just going to be real with you, because for me, coming from the streets, it's just like, I don't know. It's like Pablo Escobar calling you on the phone. You could be a drug dealer all day. You deal with whoever you deal with. But when you hear Pablo Escobar on the phone and you a drug dealer or you doing whatever, you like, oh my God, this is Pablo Escobar. Like, because he's done what he's done, and he's on the top level of it. So it doesn't necessarily have to always be a drug situation. But I'm trying to get you guys to understand. So anyway, I ended up going to Florida. I felt secure enough to go to Florida. I met them in the Lowe's Hotel, Miami Beach. Now, when I check in, I come back downstairs because they said, well, meet me in the lobby. Now, you got to understand something now. I'm a dude from the hood. No disrespect to nobody. I'm used to seeing dudes that's getting it like Big Meech. I'm not used to seeing Frank Costello. I'm not used to that. So when I get off the elevator, I immediately know who's who. There's two big white dudes the size of trees. They both got on two small shirts to make sure you see their muscles. They had nylon undershirts on. And that's it. Of course, they had on black pants and shoes, but it was like something out of a movie. Like these dudes were big. I'm looking up. All I hear and see, I think I might have smelled Old Spice cologne or something, whatever they be wearing, but it wasn't nothing that a black man would go to Macy's and go buy. And I'm not saying anything, again, to be racist. I'm just saying what it is. So one of them grabs me, and he doesn't grab me in an aggressive manner. It was like putting his hand on my shoulder to direct my vision towards Carlos Gambino. Man, this dude's hand covered my whole damn shoulder. Now understand something. This is the Lowe's Hotel in Miami. And although black people do be there, it's still a segment or a portion of society where it's a separation. Now, even in there, you can have money, but you got the uppity white folks and you got the snobby black people. So you might see one on one side of the lobby and the other on the other. Like, for example, you can go to the Lowe's right now, right? On a vacation, and a rapper, a lot of famous people stay there. But the rapper and his entourage is on the left side of the lobby. The people who got wealthy money, they're standing on the right side. They're not respecting the rapper the same way they're respecting the people who've been in business for 100 years and they have family fortunes. The rapper may not realize it and feel he's equal because he has the money, and he does have the money to stay, but there is a separation mentally and looking at them that most people don't notice. So now I am on the uppity side of the lobby where they're sitting at, but these are criminals. But they still get the respect of being white. Just telling the truth. Everybody in that damn lobby was staring at me. It wasn't something that was in my head. And I could read their faces because their faces were saying, what in the hell did this black boy do? Because there ain't no way that he could just be standing here with these Italians and they ain't talking no business. And if they are, they ain't talking about no business of buying a building. It might be some drugs, something. But the Italians wouldn't be that stupid to have those kind of conversations in those lobbies. So it was obvious that I looked out of place. Me and dude started talking. I started to get a little relaxed. Next thing you know, we on our way upstairs in the room. I had the interview. There were things said in between and whatever, and he made his jokes and he said whatever and whatever. But it didn't dawn on me until after. And when I say it didn't dawn on me until after, it was simply because he used the power of my magazine to save his son's ass. You understand what I'm saying to you? See, because that magazine that white boy used to read from that black man is what got him cool points. And he wanted to keep the best cool points he could. And what better cool point than to be able to show that there was a family member who was in the Mafia in that prison. Now, I don't know if they were extorting him or, if he just did it for, I don't know, because people do different things in prisons for different reasons. But I do believe that he did it for cool points. And it was a cool point that benefited everybody, because what ended up happening was two of his associates and Carlos Gambino got on the cover of AsIs Magazine. Even now, when I look on my wall and I look at the plaques and I see that cover, I still don't believe it. I'm like, wow. And the father did that simply because he knew he was saving his son. He wasn't no dummy. Now, there's a part that I didn't tell you. After the interview, his only request to me was, I don't want anybody to know that's my son. He knew what he was doing for his son, but he didn't want anybody else to know that was his son for whatever reason. And the reason why he did what he did is because he knew that power of him being who he was going to keep them black boys off his son's ass. Don't believe all of that crap you hear on TV and you see in the movies about this, the Aryan nation and this, that, and other. Let me tell you something. In prisons, depending on what state you are, blacks and Hispanics run those prisons. You hear statistics about the most amount of murders that happen and they're done as a result of the Aryan nation and and you'll see somebody with a Nazi haircut or skinhead or whatever and they're ferocious looking. Let me tell you something. Little Pablo in cell 17 will tear one of their asses up. And when Pablo coming with 100 more Pablos. And they don't care about Aryan Nation or none of that. And I'm not even disrespecting Aryan Nation. I'm just telling you how it is. So I want people to understand that sometimes to learn a lesson, you have to hear the lesson and you have to seek the jewels in that lesson. Are there jewels in what I just said? Depends on how you look at it. I can tell you this, though. It shows that black people got power. It shows that they fear us. And it doesn't necessarily mean white people fear us because there are black people that fear them. Until we start having real conversations and telling exactly how it is, nothing will change. Understand that. And it doesn't matter your source or where you're getting your information from. Sometimes it's believable, sometimes it isn't. But you have to be smart enough to decipher it and take what you can and make it apply to yourself. I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face. Because you come from the hood don't mean you no dummy. Because you come from the hood don't mean you're a dummy. You can read, you can learn, you can educate yourself, and then you can take those lessons and educate others. It doesn't matter what other people think. Do not fall into the stereotypes or the perceptions or preconceived notions of what other people think about you. You can't. Because as long as you do that, nothing's going to change. You can run around pro-black. You can run around Black Lives Matter. It's Black History Month. I don't subscribe to the idea of Black History Month because I am black outside of February. I acknowledge it. I take what I can from it. But that doesn't dictate or validate that I'm somebody because we got 30 days. Let me tell you something. According to statistics, understand what I'm saying to you now. These are facts. You can look this stuff up for yourself. According to statistics, in a month, there are going to be 50 black men killed at the hands of police. Do they stop and say no more gun violence and don't kill black men in the month of February? So then how can that month be so special? Because they're going to kill 50 black men in February. They killed 50 black men in January. They're going to kill 50 black men in March and in April. So what's the difference? So why should I subscribe to that notion? I will acknowledge it. I will get the information that I can and I will apply it. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this. At the end of the day, I may start to tell a couple of more stories, but I am always going to do my best to educate my people and let you guys know what it is. And I want you to understand that my people are all people. But at the end of the day, you have to be honest, because I don't believe that actually there's prejudice against people. There are dislikings, and sometimes if one person does something, they can do it so strong to where you now look at everybody the same way. You can't do that. You have to individualize. You can't use it as a blanket statement. And it took time for me to learn that. Maybe it might take time for you to learn it too, but I know you can. Hey, I want to thank you for listening to the AsIs podcast. I want to thank you for your time, and you guys enjoy your day.